Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, sleeping for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and we're here to talk about cards because I gosh dang love it.
Do you gosh dang love it?
I sure do, David. You know what else I gosh dang love? Gosh dang patrons. Love them too. Each and every one of them.
Each and every one of them.
Bless their hearts.
Bless them. Bless their hearts. So just real quick, I'd like to send a shout out to all 16 of our patrons as of right now. So we have Daniel, David, Jason, Joseph, Justin, Kyle, Lewis, Matt, Mike, Dominic,
Biffer, Bomber, Bobo.
Phil, Rob, Robert, Russ, and Sean. Thanks to you guys, we are able to put out content, however good it is. It's depending on Ted's mood at the time, but we still get to put out content, and we're thankful for you guys helping to pay the bills. We're hoping to get our swag ready for October, whether it's Con of the Rings or whether we have to send it out to each of you individually. No matter what, we plan on having swag ready. At least that's our hope right now. If you want to join, there's still time to get on the swag wagon, and or for short, the swaggin, and you can get there by July 30th. I guess is when I cut it off. So if you become a patron anytime between now and July 30th, and all our existing patrons, you get the swag. So it'll be fun, and I look forward to putting it together, and that's what I know. So,
well, since you've given that tidbit out to our patrons, I will also let them know about the weekly live stream that patrons have first choice at joining on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on when you are available in my schedule. I host a weekly live stream where we play a quest from Lord of the Rings, which is your choice, and we try and beat it with everything we've got. We've not long had Dominic Schleunleben, a patron, on doing Escape from Mount Graham, and we've got Phil coming on in the next week or so to do Intruders in Chetwood. So if you want to have first dibs at coming on and playing a quest with myself, and if I can get Ted and David to join, all the better.
You can Grant will take you for a ride, that's for sure.
And we'll have fun having a nice chilled game.
That's right. If there's anything that Grant's really good at, it's being chill. So he's in the United States. I'm not trying to say anything about any of our foreign people from outside the United States, but in the United States we had Bob Ross. Bob Ross was a really good artist, and he always talked like this and had a happy trees. Maybe he's famous enough that everybody knows who he is, but well, Grant, you're our Bob Ross.
Well, I'll get a t-shirt with that made on.
Right.
I am the Bob Ross.
You're the Bob Ross of the telecast. So, anyways, what card are we going to talk about today, guys?
Well, we're going back to the core set, and we are talking about
back to the core set.
The Lore Hero Beravor. The 10-cost Dunedain and Ranger with 2 willpower, 2 attack, 2 defense, and 4 hit points. With the action Exhaust Beravor or choose a player, that player draws 2 cards, limit once per round.
Grant, go right into it.
Well, to begin with, when she first came out, she didn't have that limit once per round on, so she essentially became infinite card draw engine.
Right.
She was later errata in issue 1.3 of the FAQ in 2012 to give out the limit once per round after they realized that they broke the game.
Well, early on, there wasn't a ton of ways to ready a hero, and then it just became like you just get more and more and more and more ways to ready heroes. So that's, I mean, I can see why playtesting through the beginning. At the beginning, there was just unexpected courage and valiant, not valiant, grim resolve, and
you could maybe common cause
too. Yeah,
so you could do some tricks, and then you'd be giving up your hero's action to draw 4 cards, but that was still a cost, especially early on in the game, like exhausting your hero to get those cards. That was it pained me sometimes to see other players like, I'm gonna use Beravor to draw 2, and I'm like, oh my god, we need our willpower, please.
Right.
What are you doing? You're not even gonna play those cards. You're not even gonna do anything with them. You don't have any resources. Don't draw cards.
It was also, obviously, if you had like 3 unexpected courages on Beravor, that was like 8 cards a turn you could draw. So if by that point in the game and you were playing, say, a multiplayer game with, say, 3 other players, that was each of you drawing 2 cards with 3 unexpected courages and our own ability and our own like first action. So she was a bit broken up until the limited at once per round.
I agree that it was a much needed errata, and
it was needed. I wasn't trying to say that it was not needed, but I will say earlier on in the card pool, it was a lot harder to ready a hero.
Yeah, it was sort of less impactful in a way, like it would be now.
Right. And also, Ted, you were also saying that your hero was less. It is now not necessarily the most important characters on the board. Sometimes you want your hero, but you can do the things that your heroes are doing with your allies now, and so that's another thing you were saying that so when you exhausted the hero, that was a huge cost.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the biggest drawback for ability, right? Is you gotta exhaust her, but then you can pick any player to draw 2 cards, and that's quite powerful. I'd say she certainly gets stronger in multiplayer due to that ability to target a character, or target a player rather, because sometimes players, they find themselves, they get extra resources but don't have the card draw, or a quest effect or location travel effect makes a player lose cards from their hand, or a shadow effect. They lose cards from their hand through some effect of the scenario, and you can help them recover so they're not just piling up resources and with nothing to do them, spend them on.
Right. And I will also say this, is that early on in the card pool, I think that there was a reason to want to be able to draw a ton, because like that Steward of Gondor became even more important. So, you were trying to draw to get that Steward of Gondor, and once you got that Steward of Gondor, you could be like, oh, okay, I'm good, or whatever it is. Now, in lore, there's just so much better options for card draw than having to exhaust a hero. There's Drinking Song, there's Daron's Runes, there's Peace and Thought, there's
Mithrandir's Advice if you're playing
Mithrandir's Advice. Yep, and then there's Heed the Dream, which is an amazing card. That fetches 2 cards. Like that also, and then there's also the ally fetching, ally mustering that you can do. If you're looking for a particular ally that's specific to allies. So I think this card in my own head has suffered from, an expanded card pool.
Or the saturation of card draw effects.
Yeah, and so and this is where I know that some of the veterans of the game are going to scream at me about, but I was never overly excited about Beravor even from the beginning. Maybe it's because I had to use, to to exhaust her to draw the 2 cards. Maybe it's because I don't really know how to play the game very well. I don't know. Like, I just like Beravor wasn't a hero that I always went to, and now, like, I think now I see the beauty in her, especially as a an engine that can help Dale decks. I know that she is used in a ton of Dale decks to just keep drawing and being able to do the Dale thing, and that's really good. But like I just don't. I don't know. I was never in love with this card. So
Answer me this, David. When did you get into the game? Was it just before
2000
the Voice of Isengard?
yeah, it was 2014 Voice of Isengard. So
The core set had been well established, and they'd already brought out a ton of other drawing effects that would
True.
actually think that Beravor wasn't as great as, say, Durin's runes.
right.
And obviously, during the Voice of Isengard, you got a few, and that cycle, you got a few of the doomed cards come out, likes of Deep Knowledge and what have you, that you drew a couple of cards and then you raised your threat by 2. So yeah, I can understand why you didn't fall in love with Beravor. Now, me, I came in fairly early on. It was between probably about the time midway through the Dwarrowdalf cycle, maybe just after the Dwarrowdalf was finishing up, was around then. And I thought she was a phenomenal card. Yes, you had to exhaust it to draw 2 cards, but you also had the ability to ready her. Now, I usually generally played with somebody running Spirit, so it was like the case of, well, give us the unexpected courage and I'll give you some card draw. It was a partnership. And with the will...
As if the game was cooperative in some fashion.
Well, yes, you would have thought that, wouldn't you? And I think she gains more value in a multiplayer scenario than she does in just pure solo. Having the ability to target any player, to have them draw a couple of cards at any one point, gives you so much more freedom than what it would be just drawing 2 cards for yourself. Because if you haven't got any resources, our ability isn't really necessarily necessary.
It's a lot of necessaries there, then. That's great. Right. Ted, go ahead. I mean, I feel like we've talked about Beravor off camera, and that you are in love with this.
Yeah,
Dunedain Ranger.
she provides just consistent card draw. Her exhausting her, it costing her action, is kind of costly, but we've mentioned numerous ways to ready your unexpected courage. In Sphere, she has Wingfoot is a really great attachment for her, because you can name an enemy, and then if an enemy comes out, she's ready to help you defend. She's got two strength or 2 defense and 4 hit points, and she can wield the Burning Brand. Or if you get the enemy and you have other ways to deal with it, or you're with another player and you only have that one enemy, she can let someone draw 2 cards. And she provides regular, consistent card draw, and getting the actions it's not so difficult to do if you have access to full card pool. She works really great with both Don't Be Hasty and Late Adventurer, because those manipulate when you can commit her to the quest. So if you commit her and you're like, oh, we actually don't need this 2 willpower, you can pull her back and then trade that 1 card out for 2 brand new cards, or let somebody else draw 2 cards if you're playing more than just solo. And there's too many effects to let you just draw cards and have it be reliable. Her traits are also really strong too. She doesn't do much with the Dunedain traits being in lore, but like I said, that Ranger trait provides her access to a few things, namely the ones that I mentioned. The leather boots and Wingfoot. And then that's it. You're drawing cards. Cards are good. You need
Now,
cards.
Ted,
You
explain
need cards to play the game.
what are leather boots and what do they do and why do they help her?
Oh yeah. So
Because I think
leather boots.
leather boots has been one of those cards that I think a lot of people in the community kind of, I don't know, just kind of was like,
Yeah. So her two greatest attachments in Sphere are leather boots and Wingfoot, because leather boots is a 1-cost lore attachment. Goes onto a lore character or a ranger character. When a location is revealed from the encounter deck, you ready the attached character. So leather boots is a little better for her multiplayer because you're more likely to see a location at higher player counts, like 3 or 4. And leather boots is nice though because it's not unique. So if another player is playing Wingfoot, which is unique, and Wingfoot lets you name a card type, and you can name enemy, location, or treachery. And if that location, enemy, treachery is revealed, you get to ready the attached character. So both cards for 1-cost lore can help you get her action.
Okay.
And then that's it. You're drawing cards.
And let me ask this to both of you. Grant, I still see you over there. I hope you're not sleeping for the ride here. But the question I have is there shenanigans that you do with when you play the 2 cards? Or not when you exhaust her to play? Like, do you wait until after combat to exhaust her? Like, hey, or do you just do it at the very beginning because you can only play cards mainly during the planning phase? Obviously, events you can play whenever you want, but you know what I'm saying.
I think it mainly depends on whether or not what the current situation is needed. If you are in the planning phase and you literally have nothing to play, then maybe drawing the 2 cards right at the beginning is the way to go. If you are not needing, if the group isn't necessarily needing the card draw, then maybe waiting till after staging, or maybe even wait until the end of the round if you don't need her ability for her stats for attacking or defending, then maybe leaving her at the end of the round. So that way she isn't got the risk of getting damaged by a nasty treachery like Necromancer's Reach or something of the like would be the way to, I think
doesn't Sleeping Sentry discard all exhausted allies or exhausted characters or something like
Sleeping Sentry's its own mamma jamma.
We just don't talk about that.
Okay. Sorry.
But yeah, you bring up a good point, David, and I think that's part of the fun of playing her as a character. There's been more games that I'd like that I've played where there's been a situation that I basically need to draw a certain card or I lose. A lot of times it's with a threat card. I'll be at 49 threat, and I'm like, unless I draw my Elrond's Council or my Galathrim's Greeting, I will threat out and lose. And I draw my 1 card for the turn, nothing. And I'm like, Beravor to live? And then you draw the card, and it's like it's amazing.
Right. It's like achievement unlocked sort of thing. Right?
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. I bought another turn to fight and continue. So her strategy on when to do that it's tough to decide if you have no way to ready her. But again, there's so many ways. The new leadership Frodo, she pairs great with, because he lets you spend a resource to ready another character come into the quest. So if you play Frodo and Beravor, every turn you can essentially pay 1 resource to draw 2 cards, or the turns that you want to do that. And I'd say a 1 resource to 2 card ratio is good, is average. You know, where if you pay a 1-to-1, that's poor, but 2-to-2 is average. And if you get a 3-to-1 draw cards to spend a resource like an Ancient Matham, that's well received, right?
Right.
Like that's a deal. But if you get 2, let me ask you, David, like, are you happy? Would you be happy to pay 1 resource to get 2 cards?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see that fair?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I think that I think even in certain cases, 1-for-1. If I'm paying one resource for one card, I mean, there's not. I mean, Rod of the Steward is the card that comes to mind. You pay 2 to draw 2 cards. But that's. I never play Rod of the Steward, but what I'm saying is that I think that there's instances where paying one resource for one card is a reasonable card, because card draw is so important when you're building a deck. I think that one of the things, and this may show its head later on in a special project here, but I think one of the things that you need in a deck is card draw. You need to be able to have the tools in your hand in order to play them, and every card suffers from having to be drawn, right, Ted?
I was gonna say, a card's only weakness is you have to draw it.
Right.
Every card
except for your except for your heroes.
Except for your heroes, right? They're the only things you can usually rely on, unless there's dumb treachery cards that blank their abilities or something. But your heroes are reliable. The cards in your deck are not reliable. They're randomized from what you've picked.
Correct.
So that's a very good point. You need tools to fight Sauron, and she gives you the tools that you prepared.
Right.
Ranger style, Dunedain style.
Ranger style. Do.
And there's some other Ranger cards you can play with her, like if you pair with Hobbits, she'll reduce the cost of Take No Notice.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a 3-cost card that lets you, the cost is reduced by 1 for each Hobbit and Ranger you control.
Right.
She plays well with, there's a bunch of Ranger cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, lore, right, Grant? The lore is that the Dunedain were protecting and that's what her flavor text is all about.
Oh, her flavor text is awesome.
It's about how the Rangers would always protect the Shire folk and keep them keep them safe. But
it's not just the Shire; it's the entire Northern Realms. They kept the lands of like Bree and the Shire, even going further south or further north.
Right.
They kept basically the entire northern areas free of the enemies of the free people. There was a quote to about Boromir not understanding how that yes, his people may have kept the lands free of Sauron, but that doesn't mean that his minions weren't other places in the world causing havoc, and it was the Dunedain that were the ones keeping them in check.
David, let me ask you this. How do you rely on... So what are some other card draw effects that both you guys play? Like Grant, too, like... So we'll start with David. David, what do you like when you're like, okay, I need to put card draw into this deck? And I know it depends on the deck and the spheres, but generally speaking,
Okay, so this is interesting because I've been building decks and I've noticed that leadership doesn't have a ton of card draw. And so I've been playing things like Valiant Sacrifice in a leadership deck to get card draw. Gandalf is always can be used for card draw, although he's not reliable. Because you may need to use him to do the damage or to do other things. But things like Drinking Song I use a ton, even if I'm not running a Hobbit. Drinking Song, Daron's Runes. Then there's Ally Legolas, Galadriel, and... There's a lot of mustering effects that I like the Tree People and Timely Aid. Those aren't card draw effects, but those are doing what you want card draw to do, which is to get at cards that you need. A very good tail.
Right.
So those are the things that I typically deep knowledge, dark knowledge. Which one? I always screw up. Which one is which?
Deep knowledge.
Deep
knowledge is doomed to each player.
Yeah, and with the new Saruman hero and his staff, you can get rid of that Doom 2. It's just like there's just a lot of card draw effects in the game, and then Beravor. Like, what do you do with Beravor other than card draw? Well, I guess he can do anything because I mean,
like
4 hit
literally
points is pretty
anything
good.
else.
Yeah, like she can quest for 2, and that's okay.
Yeah.
She can attack for 2, which is okay. Like, you can put attachments on her that then can allow her to do whatever you want her to do, I guess. But
Yeah. So Grant, when you're looking at card draw, Grant, is there something else? Like, what are you relying on to get you cards? Just generally naming a few cards.
Generally, Deeran's Runes, Deep Knowledge, depending on the type of deck I run, those are generally the 2 I look at. If I'm running Leadership, then I maybe look at Gildor and Glorian for a bit of card draw, because you're paying 1 to draw a card, an extra card each round. But generally speaking, if I'm looking for card draw, I'll take a half dozen cards for card draw, Ancient Mathams. It just depends on what set of heroes I'm running for what I'm actually playing.
Yeah, it does greatly
depends
depend
on the
heroes,
it
but-
depends on the sphere for me. Like, I didn't even think about Ancient Matham because Spirit card draw, like, like, you need Spirit card draw. It's just, I was thinking more along the lines of lore card draw and that sort of stuff. So
But I find Beravor a great splash hero. You splash her into any deck, even if it is just for a card draw. So you're okay with questing. You've got someone there for questing and someone there for doing the defending, and you've got a whole host of allies for attack.
Yeah, I've seen Beravor. David, you mentioned that Beravor helps you fuel other deck archetypes. You mentioned people put into Dale decks.
yes,
I've seen her put into Outlands decks for the same reason. You need to draw Outlands allies. I put her into a Sylvan deck recently, actually, to get the cards. It was a very wonky Sylvan deck. It was actually the Lothiriel version. It was Celeborn, Lothiriel, and Beravor. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds...
Yeah.
That sounds
weird. It sounds awesome. You're right, it is.
Did you give Lothiriel Elfriend so that she
entirely dependent. It's a terrible deck because it literally depends on you having Elfriend on Lothiriel.
Right, but at least you can include Heed the Dream because you can get the...
it runs Beravor, Drinking Song, and Dayron's Runes, I think, and Heed the Dream.
Right.
So I have many, many, many tools to find that one card I need.
Right.
But she is one of those tools to get it.
And notice how nobody has brought up Lore Bilbo yet.
Oh, by comparison?
Yeah. I mean, Lore Bilbo maybe... Like, Lore Bilbo, by all accounts, is a lot worse of a card, but maybe better in solo play on its surface because you're always, you don't have to exhaust. It's just a passive effect. I don't know. But like 9 threat cost for 6 stats. Like, I just can't.
I just don't use Lore Bilbo if I can help it. If I'm looking at between Lore Bilbo and Beravor, I take Beravor every time. She's got more hit points. She's got a better stat line, and she draws you an extra couple of cards. Yes, it's not a passive effect, but it's still a better effect in general.
Yeah, there's some discretion there depending on what other cards you want to. But yeah, you pay 1 extra threat to get beefier stats. But then Lore Bilbo, if you're playing true solo, you always get 1 extra card, and that's very reliable. And then you can still get Bilbo's action, which
right.
Again, it's kind of tough because it's not a strong action. But
come on, you can quest for 1 every round.
Quest for 1 every round.
And defend for 2. It's fine.
Defend for 2 and maybe survive.
And get struck by a goblin swordsman and die.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, there's a few options, and Beravor, I'd say still holds up. So I'm ready to put her through the ringer.
Okay. So for anybody who is new to the show or doesn't has forgotten what we do, we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 ring is the one card to rule them all, and if we ring it 10 rings, we throw that card back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. So, Ted, you love Beravor, so you get to go first, buddy.
I do. And I should mention one other card that doesn't do the same thing as her. Well, I'll mention Aristor too, lore hero Aristor.
Yeah.
As a last afterthought, because he functions they function fundamentally differently, because Aristor does get you a lot of card draw and then you're discarding it, where Beravor is actually net drawing you cards each turn at the cost of exhausting, but they have the same stat line and threat.
Well, Dunedain, right, is also similar.
Similar, where you're not netting cards, but getting to cycle through your deck.
Right.
So there's there's differences and different strategies for using each of those heroes, along with Lord Bilbo and a lot of the other cards that we named. But yeah, like how you pick your hero to help you draw cards, it's important. You have to really think about how you're going to be using them on what the deck's going to focus on. But in the grand scheme of everything, if you want a consistent effect to draw cards, it's going to come from Beravor is one of those ways, and she net draws you cards, and it's just there. It's just there for access to tools. So I'm going to give her a 3.
3. Okay, well, I'll go next. Grant, you need a little more time to think about your rating. So Beravor is a card that I just never reach for, and I don't know why. It's not that I think that she's horrible. I have used her a couple of times when she's across the table from me and somebody else is playing. Like, I think that it's wonderful. Somebody says, you want to draw 2 cards, like Ted said. Like, yes, I do. Thank you. You know,
aren't you happy when someone's like, "Oh, David, draw 2 cards." You're like, "Thank you."
Thank you. Right. You know, like, that said, like, I just am never drawn to putting Beravor in a deck much. I just, like,
you should
of all
be drawn to Beravor to
I guess.
draw.
Yeah, like, right. I'm drawn to keeping her draw away. It's just, and by the time, I guess it may be, like Grant said from the very beginning of the show, from when I got into the game, it just seems like, you know, there was so many other card drawing effects that I didn't necessarily have to love Beravor right out the gate. So maybe it's just the way that I collect, and it's also the way that I play. You know, I don't know. Maybe this is what makes me not a very good player, but I'm going to say that Beravor is a 6. I'm not reaching for Beravor. And you know what? Talking about her for a half an hour doesn't make me want to play her much either.
Oh no.
Yeah, like there was the one combo that I thought was interesting, the Frodo Beravor combo. I was like, oh, but that's because I like funny combos with Frodo, not because I like combos with Beravor.
Or you play the Aristor Bilbo Beravor combo and you just draw 7 cards a turn.
Draw all your cards and you can never play them anyways, because you don't have any way to get enough resources to play them all. Grant, what's your take on her?
Well, I like using Beravor. I don't use her very often now, but back when I first started playing, she made it into several decks, either into mine or my partner's deck. And yeah, I've got really nothing much bad to say about Beravor. I'm giving her a rating of a 4. If I need a splash hero, or I need a little bit of extra card draw that my attachments or my events aren't giving me, I may look at putting her in as the 3rd hero of my deck.
Huh. Maybe I need to take a closer look at her. But I think we took a pretty close look at her tonight, and I think
you just need to get her on the table, mate.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I'll leave that one be. So that's our episode on Beravor, another core set hero. So join us again as we talk about more cards in the game. Have a great day, everybody. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed cardtalk2018.libsyn.org for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com. You guys are going to take the lead on this card because I hardly ever use her.
Oh, Beravor? I just put her into a deck. Love Beravor.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those cards that I just skipped over, even though the card draw is amazing, right? So
There's more ways to do it though as the card pool's gotten bigger.
right.
And if you're playing solo a lot too, Bilbo's a little better in true solo.
Right, 2/2/2. But Bilbo, I don't know. Who knows? Okay, are you ready?
Now you're just somebody that I used to, Bilbo. Bilbo. Bilbo.
Frodo.
Frodo.
You're somebody I used to, Frodo.
There's a parody there waiting to happen. Just saying.
Okay, if you do this parody, I'll put it out there. Every meeting I have access to.